Welcome to the Surviving Business Podcast, where we go beyond the strategy of doing business and explore the mindset of the most successful leaders of today. Here are your hosts, Shane Anderson and Iva Locke.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. How is everybody? I hope everybody is well, and welcome to another live webinar here called Surviving Business. My name is Shane Anderson, and we and my trusted colleague, Iva, have been building these webinars to help small and medium business owners and entrepreneurs right around the globe receive content on how to not only survive these troubling times, but to also thrive in today's world. As we know, the world has gone completely crazy, especially in the last few weeks, depending on when you've seen this video. But you know, there is a lot of knowledge and there is a lot of expertise out there in the world today. And we want to be able to harness that and bring that to you in a format that gives you some gold nuggets on to, as we say, not only survive, but to thrive. Now, my trusted colleague and good friend of mine, Mr. Iva, we have been in business for many years. I actually met this gentleman as a master coach through the Tony Robbins Platinum Group when I was a Platinum. And we became not only good friends, but also we went and did businesses together. We have shared the stage together. We have traveled the world together. We have done an amazing array of things. And he is one of the closest confidants that I have that allows me to bounce ideas and really come up with strategies that fit the today's world. And I am with great pleasure to introduce my off-sider today, Mr. Iva Locke. How are you, buddy?
I'm very well, thank you, Shane. Very well, thank you, and thank you for the kind words. And you know, likewise, you know, Shane has been such an inspiration for myself as well. You know, it's such a privilege to be working with him. You know, Shane came to me as a client, and we took a you know, one business which was just a small little panel beating shop, and we grew that to 26 shops across the nation, and we did millions of dollars out of that in a way. And then, of course, as Shane says, we've run multiple businesses together. We shared the stage, and it's such a privilege, Shane. Thank you so much for to be able to work with you and to continue work with you, my friend. You know, I look forward to what we're going to build next. And you know, as we said, this is it's a hard space because we know that so many people are really struggling at the moment, and we really want to help them right now, in a way. So, Shane, thank you very much for that honor, my friend. Now, everybody, you know, you didn't come for just the two of us, ultimately. We have a very special guest on today. This man, you know, on January the 15th, 2009, in the freezing Hudson River, a plane ditched through a bird strike, and what actually happened was that this man was one of the last passengers out of the 155 passengers. He was the last passenger to come off that plane. Best-selling book is not Miracles on the Hudson, sorry, Dave, Moments Matter, ultimately. And, you know, today is so important. And when we're thinking about surviving business and about where we are, I remember saying to Shane, you know something, we must get Dave on this call, because I remember seeing Dave 2 years ago and meeting Dave 2 years ago, and the amount of impact that he made to my world. I remember that so clearly. He said, moments matter. And absolutely moments matter right now more than ever, in a way. So it's not what you do tomorrow. It's not what you did yesterday. It's what you do now. So it's with great pleasure that I want to introduce you to the one and only Dave Sanderson. So Dave, I'm just going to put on your video, and you'll just have to start it on your side, but you can come live, my friend, ultimately.
Well, Iva and Shane, thank you so much for having me this morning in Australia and this evening in the North American region. Thank you.
Mate, welcome. We are growing very quickly. We've got people coming in from everywhere and people watching live on Facebook today. And, you know, we asked all of our guests, how do you survive business? That is the ultimate question that we asked. And Dave, mate, if you don't mind, before we delve into exactly how you survive business in today's world, can you just let us know where you are and what is happening in your part of the world to help you survive business?
Well, thank you so much. As all of us were facing this global, pandemic situation, I'm in North Carolina, and fortunately for us, we're not on total lockdown right now, but we're on about an 80% lockdown. So I think most people are realizing the gravity of the situation, but business goes on. And I think one of the things you're seeing now, especially where I am and the organizations that I work with, you really have to learn how to be adaptable. And like I'll talk about more today, is it's all about the resourcefulness that you have. And that's one of the key things that I love to talk about, because that day on the Hudson River, you didn't have any resources except your head. So you had to be resourceful. So that was a great sort of analogy for me to be able to go forward with. So I'm looking forward to sharing that a little bit more with you a little later today.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the things that you said, Dave, as well, it's about resourcefulness, but what led you up to having that resourcefulness? Because I think that was one of the things that we kind of look at is the preparation for that resourcefulness, isn't it?
That's exactly why, it's a great question. Exactly why I named the book Moments Matter. Because what you realize when you face something, and as we're all facing something right now, all these moments in our life are there for a reason and a purpose. And it does serve you, because you never know when one of those moments you're going to have to break out and say, you know what, maybe I did that when I was 12 years old. Maybe that was giving me the certainty to do what I was going to need to do right now. So I think all these moments in our life are the resources. If you look at it from the resources, they're there for you to pull on for situations like we're all in right now. And that day on the Hudson River, for me, trying to not only stay alive, but try to get out and survive and then thrive afterwards.
And that really is the key. I mean, a lot of people go through a lot of personal development. Most of the people that we have on these calls have done some form of personal development and really started to do some training on themselves. And we often think that training is for the very short term future, but sometimes we actually find out that it's the training that you've done years ago that corrects and trains your mind for a certain situation like we are going through now. What are some tips that you could sort of provide to people to harness that training, to be able to maybe bring that to the forefront and bring that up out of the depth of almost forgotten training up into where they are right now and be able to really use that?
Well, I think one of the things that I have done consistently, especially since my first mentor, Bill, back in 1983, sort of took me on, is he always focused me on self-development, always improving yourself consistently. As Tony Robbins says, right? Constant and never-ending improvement. Well, Bill was teaching me that back in 1983, and I didn't know I was being taught that, but he was the one who really encouraged me to read and encouraged me to go to these seminars and encouraged me to take these development times and opportunities and always do something and have an action. So as Tony says, to trigger it, right? Mm-hmm. So I've been able to take all these things I've been able to experience in my life and sort of attach a trigger. So, and then one of the things I talk about now is about having focused execution with gratitude. And the way I do that is I set a trigger up, because right now for everybody in this who's on this call and watching this, you can't afford to miss a step, especially in business right now. I mean, there's too many things going on, and this thing is moving too fast. So there's times in my life, especially when I'm going on stage or even just trying to get to a plane on time, when you can't miss a detail. So I've set up a trigger that years ago. I said, execute. I put this trigger in. So I go into that modality that I can't miss a step, and I'm so focused. Mm-hmm. So I think right now it's about all these moments that I have thought back, and I said, maybe that was a moment that I needed to be able to jump in and do something and use that as a sort of resource and sort of trigger to it. So I can go into that modality.
Yeah, wow. And when most people are doing these sorts of things and going through these troubled times and going through that execution phase, and how do you manage not going into fight or flight mode, in the sense of how do you actually step out of the stress and go into more of a flow state and be able to actually genuinely feel like it's all just coming out of you through the universe and in through your hands, rather than actually worrying about every moment as well?
Well, that's a great question, because I think one of the things it really comes down to, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, is you got to put yourself in the mode of certainty. And, we talk about 6 human needs, right? And certainty is one of those needs, but people in the most uncertain times are looking for the person with the most certainty. Now that's when all of a sudden that person becomes the leader. And see, what I talk about now, it all starts with your personal leadership. And there's 2 key tenets to personal leadership. It's resourcefulness and the ability to solve problems quickly. So when I put myself in that modality of certainty, I'm hopefully giving certainty to other people who are uncertain, but I'm also in that modality of I've got to solve a problem. And if I can solve the problem and use my resourcefulness to do it, people start looking at me as like, okay, maybe if he could do it, maybe I can do it too. And all of a sudden I'm getting certainty out. So I think it all starts, Shane, with the ability to give certainty to those who are uncertain. And right now, there's so much uncertainty right now in the world. And you just look at the U.S. stock market, right? It's all about uncertainty because right now, today, I'll give you a perspective, Ivor. You talk about what's going on around the world.
Yeah.
Right now, our Congress and Senate cannot get a bill passed because they're trying to blow things into it. So it's giving uncertainty to so many people and the markets. So the markets are now tumbling again. Once somebody gives that certainty, the government says, okay, we're behind you and we're going to help you, watch the markets turn around. It's all about certainty.
Absolutely, 100%. It's so great to hear another person actually talk about certainty because I talk about this to my clients all the time. It's about having and finding that certainty not outside of yourself but within yourself in a way. But having that certainty, Dave, tell us a little bit more. I mean, when you were in that plane and when that plane crashed to the water, what was going through your head and what got you to actually have clarity in that moment? Because it's for most people would be such a frightening experience of oh my goodness, I'm going to die in that moment. So what kind of, take us through a kind of like a little bit of minutia of how did that actually happen and what kind of went through your head at that moment?
Thanks, great question, Ivor, because how it transpired is after we crossed the George Washington Bridge in New York, we were approximately 60 to 70 seconds to crash. And that's the moment you think, well, we're probably not going to come back. But I had peace about my mind because you know what? If I don't come back, at least I'm going to a better place. And because it goes back to, I said, just put a different spin. I use reframing.
Yes.
And that's one of the biggest things we talk about is the meaning you attach to something produces the emotion of your life, and emotion is your life. So I attach the meaning as I'm going to a better place. But now you survive. Now you're in the water and you survive, but the plane is going down. Yes. Now there's controlled chaos going on around you. People are not losing it. I've always said people are amazing. People weren't pushing and shoving and hitting people. It was controlled, but people were moving fast. So what changed for me in the moment, this is how I got my certainty. This is what put me in the mode. When I got to the aisle, it's my turn to get out. I was the seat 15A, my turn to go. I got to the aisle, and as soon as I hit that aisle, I heard my mom start talking to me. And my mom passed away in 1997. But when I was a child, she would say, this goes back to Moments Matter. When I was a child, she used to say something to me that just came into my mind. It was, if you do the right thing, God will take care of you. And at that point in time, 2 things happened. Number one, the one certain thing that we all have is a greater being. Whether you believe it or not, I believe there's a greater being. The same greater being that was with Daniel in the lion's den is the same one today. So that's certainty. You can't get any more certain than that. But second, one of the great things I tell people about my mother is she made me make a choice. Once I went back and sort of broke it down, it's like she didn't say, do the right thing. She said, if you do the right thing. She made me make a choice. Now, I could have gotten out of the plane, and that could have been the right thing for me right then, and nothing would have been said. But I made a choice that I was going to help other people, so I went towards the back of the plane, climbed over the seats to get back in the plane behind everybody where the water was chest deep, and started going out with other people and start helping people out. And that gave me certainty because I knew at least I had faith in my mind that there was a greater being watching over me. And if I was doing the right thing, everything would be okay. And that gave me certainty. So that's that moment. I think that was the moment, the triggering moment for me, that everything was probably, at least I was going to turn out okay because I did the right thing, at least in my mind and hopefully in my mother's mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't it amazing when we have a look at these types of things? We live in a very egocentric world at the moment where we just think about the I, and we're all about going out there and making money for ourselves and building our little platform. But it actually seems to be when the person evolves enough to they raise their level of consciousness to actually sit back a little bit and realize that there's a bigger picture, and that we are all connected, and that we are all sort of, the entire world is all connected as one, that true wealth starts to really manifest itself into one's life. And that might mean money, it might mean fame, it might also mean certain things, but it's more about that losing of the ego. And something I really sense from you, Dave, is that at that moment, it became not just about yourself, but it became about everybody that was on that plane. And that to me is something that we really face right now. There's people out there in the world that are dealing with the current crisis, and they're worried about themselves. They've locked the door, they're barring it with a gun, and they're living in this state of fear. And it's those that are reaching out and giving back. And everybody that's on this call today is all joining a community. And it almost feels like the entire planet is taking this conscious shift that it's no longer about I, it's about we. And we're able to break down a lot of borders. Are you feeling that in the United States at the moment? Is there a sense of that starting to manifest?
I believe it is, because I think over this last weekend, and I worked the entire weekend focusing on how to help get people these masks. And because last week I gave platelets at the Red Cross. The reason I want to tell you this is I was sensing a feeling coming around, just like you said, that people they want to be able to give, but they didn't know how to give, right? Because they've been so egocentric for so long. Like, how do I get out of this? And my whole message was, the first thing you do is you give. Whether it's your time, your talent, you just give something to somebody. So I intentionally went out and gave platelets and make a sort of statement. It's like, this is how you can do it. It doesn't cost you anything. Plus, you get out, you get free eats. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think right now, I'm sensing people are wanting to give. I think people want to figure out a way, because now they have time to figure out, you know what? Maybe, I'm stuck in my house. I can't go off the property. I only get to go out maybe once a day. But what can I do to help somebody else in a painful situation? And also you're seeing this go out, which is a beautiful thing to see, because it's been so really tough the last several years, because everybody's about what's in it for me. Yeah. And that's not where true growth comes from.
Yeah, it's amazing. You're seeing photos and images coming in from all around the world at the moment. I've seen an image in Turkey where, people are taking out boxes of food to give to the homeless people. And there really is there seems to be a little bit of a shift in the way, the mindset of even around, the capitalist world that we've built at the moment. I'm not speaking in any terms around politics, but just this ability to actually sort of give back and break down a lot of borders around the place. Even though the government seem to be, here in Australia especially, they've created a border right through the middle of our city, and now have created a border ban. So I don't know how that's going to work, because most of our city have surfboards, so they might just swim around that and keep on going. But mate, it's an amazing world that we've found ourselves in. How would you, if you were to give anybody on this call 3 tips on, first of all, how to solidify what they have now, and then move that into a transition period from survive to thrive, what would those 3 tips essentially look like?
Well, thank you. The first thing I would tell people is I'll use once again a plain sort of analogy is what great pilots and great captains do is they aviate, navigate, and communicate. And what aviate means is how long can I keep that plane in the air? Or for me, how long can we keep that boat above water? So how can you, as I talked about this weekend, how can you extend that game? So that's number one. How do you aviate and keep your plane afloat? Because right now there's a lot of businesses that challenging situations. A lot of people are financially challenged right now. Their retirements are almost gone because of how all this is going. How long can I keep that afloat? But second is, how am I going to navigate this? And we already talked about this, Ivor, right? We talked about, being able to be resourceful. And how can you use the different resources? And part of the resources is giving. That's a resource you have. You can go out and give and focus on you outside of yourself, because it will come back tenfold. So how do you navigate? But third is, and this is what's key and why I'm really, really excited to be with you today, is how to communicate effectively. Because right now you're hearing so many different ways of people communicating. But one of the things I learned years ago from Bill and then Tony and all these great leaders is they communicate effectively because they use their sensory modality, sensory acuity. They understand how to communicate in the modality that person needs to communicate in. And right now, people can be kinesthetic, right? I mean, they can't be close and feely touchy, but they can communicate like we are, visually or auditorily. And more importantly, if you're in business, and this is what I learned really over the week, it sort of opened my eyes, is right now, most of the people who, especially in healthcare or in industries, are really supply chain, manufacturing, they don't have time to answer emails, but they all have their mobile phones with them. And they will answer a text quickly. So all of a sudden I'm realizing I got to go into modality of texting to be able to go. And all of a sudden I'm reaching people that I never thought I'd reach. So one of the strategies I would say, aviate, navigate, and communicate. That's number one on the agenda right now, because we all have our personal planes right now. We're flying our personal planes. We're trying to keep them up and they're going down. I mean, it's a scary time. So if you model that, I think that's number one. And number two, really, it's focusing, as we already talked about, giving. Find a way to give, because you'll grow. If you give, you'll grow, because it will come back to you. And I would say there's so many organizations now are looking for either people to help not only their organization, but how can they help their organization's organization? I'll give you an example. I was, work like I talked about. One of the things I did this weekend is help find and source these masks, N95 masks that everybody needs. And I found it. So I reached out to all these hospitals to say, you know what? I'm not asking for any money. I'll give you a source. I'll get you a mask. Just you follow this protocol and you will have masks within 3 to 4 days. And all of a sudden, I feel so much better about myself because I've helped somebody else. I'm getting nothing from it. I'm getting no financial remuneration whatsoever. But it feels good. If I feel good, I'm happy. If I'm happy, I'm adding value. So you just heard my mindset.
Brilliant.
So the second thing is really giving. And third thing is, I really think you got to stand guard of your mind right now. You can't let bad stuff in. And the way to do that is you still got to keep up your physical routine. Your body's your temple. And right now, especially with all this stuff that's going on, you don't know where this coronavirus is at any time. It's invisible. But if you can take care of your body, the stronger you are, the less chance you have to get it. So I've been very focused on making sure that I take as much anti-immunity or immunity stuff as I can to make sure I can keep my body strong so I can be there for other people. Those are 3 strategies I'm doing right now that have been very effective over the last several days.
Brilliant, Dave. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Has anybody got any questions for Dave at the moment? I don't think we have any questions right here. We have a very sharp crowd here at the moment, Dave. So, being in that space of giving, and you're quite right, and I think is a bit of a theme, Shane, that we've got coming through at the moment, because we had another guest last night that we talked with, and again it was being able to give and put it outside of yourself, or take ego out of it, and actually give more and give more and give more. So it's a very interesting space, and even for us at the moment with Shane and I, being able to look at the crisis that's happening in the world, we activated, and the first thing we went is, how can we help? We thought, well, hey, let's have a look at this. This is how we can help. And again, it was the question of, okay, well, normally people only do kind of one of these things like maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks or something like that. But we said, something, the world's in crisis right now. And we recognize the fact that actually we need to be able to maintain people's minds. We have to be able to give people that certainty that you're talking about, to be able to give them and change the narrative that we have in a way. Because the thing is, if we allow ourselves to shift and to change that narrative to survive, then we're shifting away from resourcefulness and creativity. And as soon as we shift towards thriving, we're shifting towards creativity and thrive. Okay, I've got a question here no, not quite a question, but a remark in the chat. My takeaway: certainty equals leadership. Good stuff. So, and yes.
Ivor, just to build on what you're saying there and what Dave is saying, when you talk about step 3 and body is your temple and making sure that you keep the good stuff in, that obviously also flows on to your mindset. You touched on it briefly. How important is proximity to the right people during these days when we seem to be flooded with copious amounts of negativity? There seems to be just an endless stream pouring in the door, and it doesn't matter how fit somebody is in their mindset. Eventually, that will break them down into a state of fear. So, how important do you think, Dave, is it to surround yourself with like-minded people during these times to keep that energy high?
Well, it's imperative, and that's one of the things I'm really working on myself and around my boundaries right now. Because one of the challenges I've had is I want to help everybody. But as you said, Shane, there's some people who are not there for the right intent. They have a bad intention. And sometimes, it takes a little time to figure that out. So I've really focused on building the correct boundaries and having the right people around me that I can trust and I have certainty with. Let me give you an example. One of the great things that my mentor, Bill, for 12, 13 years taught me these 12 business success principles. And one of those principles, what I'm going to be doing on my next book's going to be writing about, is about, he talked about having all successful people have optimistic perspective. Now, a little bit of background. Bill started his business in 1929 during the Depression. Wow. He had a movie theater business, and he was working with a mentor back then, and he really went to, but he loved the movies, but no one had money for the movies, right? No one. I mean, you had all the money you had because you're in a depression was going towards essentials. Yeah. But he loved the movies. So he opened these movie theaters here in North Carolina. And what he did was brilliant. He didn't charge for the movies, but he charged for the popcorn because people needed to eat.
Ah, nice.
So he built an empire of this way. And when he was teaching me this, he talked about this. He always had an optimistic perspective. And he said he got that from Franklin Roosevelt, because Roosevelt had to handle not only the Depression, but a world war. And you always saw him doing his fireside chats, goes back to communication, to communicate optimistically. He was never down. He never would let the negativity get around, even though he had negative people around him all the time. He would never portray that into the public light. I think that's a great lesson that Bill taught me and Franklin Roosevelt taught everybody, is even the most dire times, is if you have an optimistic perspective, you will not only survive, but you can thrive. And that's one of the things I'll be writing about in my new course, in my new book. I think it's so important because so many people go to that negativity quickly, and that's what buries them. No one wants to be around a negative person.
And Tony says a lot in his training, Tony Robbins, winter is coming. Well, winter just full blown smacked us all fair in the face. So we have a choice now, right? We have a choice to either freeze to death or we have a choice to go skiing. Now, that metaphor to me means that is, we don't get to choose our circumstances that are around us, but we get to choose the emotion that we attach to that. Whether or not we stop in our tracks and consolidate to the point where we no longer grow. And we all understand that if you're not growing, you're dying, especially in today's day and age. So it's very important for people to break out of that comfort mode and give back. It doesn't matter what they did yesterday, does it? It's almost like the world has shifted on a dime, and what people used to be or what their labels were, CEO, manager, or whatever it was, 2 weeks ago, doesn't necessarily fit today's world. It may in 30 days or 60 days or whenever it may go back to that. But in today's day and age, they need to be able to evolve and understand that their current source of employment isn't necessarily them. It's not their identity. They're much more broad than that. They're built for more than that. And how would you suggest that somebody who is sitting there right now and thinking, whatever their job may be, they may be in a job that is complete lockdown and they're being laid off, and they're sort of looking at the world thinking, well, how do I restart from here? What is a step that you think that something that tangible that they could actually sit there and dwell on, that may help them discover who they truly are and what their real life purpose is at this point, Dave?
Thank you. I was very blessed, as you know, for 10 years, got to travel and be with Tony almost nonstop for traveling 10 years. You can't help but get that in your body, right? And so you can tell I can trigger things really quickly because I've been able to do that. And it starts with identity. As you said, when people tie their identity to a situation, they're going to have a crash and fall. Because what I saw, some of the people during the Miracle on the Hudson, or I should say after the Miracle on the Hudson, that was their identity. That was their identity. So for several months or years even, things were good. But once that sort of started fading off, their identity was challenged. And I mean, that didn't happen to me because I had a different meaning. I was focusing on something else. So, I think one of the things I talk about is, I made the transition from working for a company named Oracle to going in, doing my own thing. And how I did, and I had to make it, that's a 180-degree shift. I made the shift. People ask me how I did that. There's a lot of strategies I did, but I'm going to give you one right now because people right now who need to retool, redo it, they can use this. And I'll tell you just a quick story. Where I'm sitting right now, I got a phone call from my wife, and she had a call from a neighbor down the street who needed help getting their TV on. Two older ladies, 70s, and you go do anything for your neighbor, right? And so I went down there, I helped them get their TV on, took it less than 2 minutes. And they said, would you like to stay for milk and cookies? Now, I love milk and cookies. I don't know if you hear that. I love milk and cookies, especially with two older ladies who could probably bake cookies, right? So I'm all in, right? So I'm sitting there waiting for these cookies and all this stuff. And I'm sitting on their couch, and they had this little table out with all these books. And I start flipping through the books, and I open up, and they were books from World War II, and they had pictures of concentration camps. So, wow, I love World War II history. This is great. So when they walked back out, I said, hey, where did you get these books? And they looked at me, and they rolled up their sleeves and showed me the numbers down their arms.
Yeah, wow.
They were in the concentration camp. And I said, would you let me film this? Just tell me the story. They told me I couldn't film it, but they told me for 2 hours how they survived a concentration camp.
Wow.
And all of a sudden I came back. This is how my book came about. They came back, I thought, these women survived one of the most horrific situations in the history of the world and thrived. How did they do it? And when I found out from them and found out a lot of people, they had virtual references. They modeled people who survived something before, so they had a pathway on how to do it. Mm-hmm. So one of the goals I have now for people who want to retool, if they say, you know what, I lost my job. I just talked to somebody today. I lost my job. What am I going to do? So we're going to retool. We're going to find somebody doing what you want to do. I will hook you up with them, and they will mentor you on how to do it. And that's what I'm doing with people right now who are going through this challenge. So my strategy would be this, is you find a virtual mentor and you reach out to anybody on this call, because someone on this call, how many people on this call probably know somebody who's doing what you want to do. You make sure that you hook them up and don't always take the phone call, put them together with a mentor and watch what happens. It may not be overnight, but within 6 to 9 months, they'll retool. They're in a world they would never thought they would be in. This tragedy is going to turn into some great creative people right now, and it's going to trigger them to do that. That would be my strategy, Shane.
Brilliant, Dave, brilliant. And as you mentioned in the Depression, when we were speaking about all of the businesses that seem to be some of the top businesses ever to grace the earth, most of them were actually started during the Depression years. So it really is an ability to be able to have a look at certain things. And even though things seem very dire at the moment, if you watch certain news channels, it certainly gives you the ability to have hope, and not only have hope, but to almost a giddy excitement as the world starts to shift. And there's a full reset that seems to be happening. So as I said, whatever people did last week, I just want to keep drumming it into their head that it does not matter. As Dave said, you can just reschool, retool, and create new resources with anybody that's actually on this thing today. Ivor, what's your thoughts on that, my friend?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, the world that we know what it's going to be when we come out of it is not going to be the world that we knew, in a way. What's happening at the moment, we're in a technological revolution at the moment, and everybody is going to be more inclined to actually move towards technology, and I think we're going to embrace more technology, which means our infrastructure is going to become better as well. And I was just saying earlier on, I think what's happening in the world at the moment is it's showing how small our world really is. Technology is making it smaller, and of course, with what's going on, it's creating that kind of energy for people to realize that, wait a minute, we're not by ourselves. Because I've been coaching for 15 years, and I've never ever had the situation where every single person that I've spoken to in the world has the same problem. So it's kind of like a bit eerie, because normally you're speaking about something very isolated and you're going, well, I'm okay. It's not happening in my part of the world, in a way. And I think everybody would agree that's on this call at the moment, like, it's creating this uncertainty which we don't know. Like, normally winters, we know summer's going to come. We know that spring is going to come. We know that summer's going to come, but we don't know when summer's going to be, in a way. So it's kind of like holding on to that resourcefulness at the moment, which is kind of weird. So Dave, when you think back about that and about those moments matter, because you're talking about, what your mother said to you and about, it coming back to you. What's coming back to you now, though? Because, that was in that moment of desperation at that moment, in that time period. Well, what kind of messages coming back to you right now in that kind of like moments matter of where, oh yeah, I've got to hold on to this. Well, what's kind of creeping back in now?
Well, it's a great question, because I said in an interview last week that, I talk about people have personal plane crashes, and we're going through a personal plane crash right now. Each one of us have a personal plane crash. Excuse me. And I said, what that allowed me to do is gave me a very strong reference to be able to handle things when things get tough. So, I use this as, we talk about references, I use this as a reference. Now, I survived a plane crash. I got out of the water. You know what? I was able to thrive. Now, this too shall pass. I have a reference point that I can get through. So I built the muscle up to do it. And that's why, excuse me. But right now, my new talk and my new focus is, how can I help people find what I call their distinct advantage? And with if they can find what they're gifted at, that will be what I call now your pitch, your point in time that changes everything. Once you, Shane, anybody on this call, once you find that distinct advantage, if I can help you find that, I will help you find that point in time that will change everything for you. And right now, that's what we all need to be doing, help people finding their distinct advantage. And that will be the point in time that will change everything for them. So that's really my focus right now, is helping people do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now it's about and how would people be able to do that? Would they go through and spend some time journaling every day to be able to bring that out of them, or what would be your recommendation at the moment?
Well, I tell you, that's a great record, because when this sort of came to light for me is when I recommitted to myself to listen or read 1 hour a day.
Yes.
I mean, once I started, I got away from it for years, and there's times that you just get caught up, right? But once I committed to do that, and all of a sudden I started journaling these little key points, all of a sudden my distinct advantage sort of popped out. And I'll tell you how that happened. It actually really came about last maybe July, August, when I was talking to somebody from Vancouver, British Columbia, who heard me speak. And he came up to me after I got done speaking. He goes, you know what? He goes, I bet most people think that everything changed for you on that plane crash. I said, yeah. He goes, that wasn't when it changed. I said, what do you mean? He said, this is when it changed for you. I said, you're exactly right. He said, that's your distinct advantage. And I said, wow. And that was the point in time that shifted for me. It wasn't the plane crash. People think for me, it was the plane crash, you got out, you're on TV, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't that. It was several months later, or several weeks later, I should say. And all of a sudden, I realized I found my distinct advantage through crisis.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're in crisis right now. People are going to find so what my recommendation would be is find people like you or Shane or me or anybody. Find somebody who's done this, right? Who's walked their talk. There's a lot of people out there talking a lot, you know?
Yeah.
There's not many people who've walked their talk. Find somebody who's walked their talk, who can give you straight, candid feedback.
Absolutely.
My new mentor, Don, got with me last year and had to sit down and kick my butt. And my mom said, sometimes you need a good butt kicking, right? He came and kicked my butt. And all of a sudden I realized, you know what? I am not playing at the level I used to play at, right? I got lazy. Can't be lazy right now. Because one of the things I talk about, guys, in leadership is casualness leads to casualties. You can't be casual, especially right now with your money. You can't be casual with your time, with your spirituality, with your physical body, with your relationships. You can get divorced. I mean, there's so many things that you're casual, and I got casual. Right now, you cannot be casual. So that's one thing I would focus everybody on this call is don't be casual with any of these key areas of your business. Because I'll tell you what, once that one goes down, if your finances start going down, everything else will start coming down with it. You can't be casual. Casualness leads to casualties.
I love that phrase. That is a genuinely good phrase, and one that I think everybody can relate to. When you mention about coming into a few weeks after the plane crash, and all of a sudden you found your distinct advantage, was it? I went through a little bit of a crisis a couple of years ago, or what I thought was a crisis at the time, which allowed me to really sit back and actually have a moment of silence. So, I speak about sometimes like the idiot on your shoulder that's constantly yapping in your ear, telling you who you are, what you should be doing. And all of a sudden there was a moment of silence where it sort of just created a little space, a little gap. And in that gap manifested the idea of who I wanted to be. It was almost like a vision of where it wasn't an English word or anything like that. As I said, the universe, God, none of them speak in English terms. It was more like just a flash of an image that all of a sudden I went, if that, that may be possible, but it didn't happen with chatter. How is something, do you do anything to try and maybe slow and breathe? And is there any practical steps that you do on a daily basis if you find yourself getting into an overwhelm, or that things are starting to, like the dog's running too far on the leash, so you've got to sort of pull everything back? Is there any practical things that you do for yourself to actually just remain calm in that situation?
Thank you for that question, because what I do, and maybe it's a little bit out there, a little weird, but you probably seen these big Swiss balls, right? These big balls, your big roller balls.
Yeah. I've
got one in my office here. What I do when I get to those times, we all get to those times. I don't care if you're Tony Robbins or Queen Elizabeth. Everybody's got those times. I go sit on my Swiss ball and I just pray. That's right. I sort of sometimes, my Swiss ball is over there. Just sit on and pray for 5 minutes or so, and that centers me again. Because then I can go back to about gratitude. It's all about giving thanks to something bigger than yourself, because grace is fueled by gratitude. The more gratitude you give, the more grace you will get. The more grace you will get, the more you can give. And that's the way I look at it. So that's what I do. That's what I do. And if I don't have my Swiss ball around, I go find something to sit on and just take 5 minutes and pray and put my gratitude hat on and say, you know what? This is not about me. Because if I'm thinking about me, I'm taking away from what it really is was my creator. And if I do that, then I'm by myself, and I don't want to be by myself. So that's how I do it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot at the moment, Dave, to be grateful for, isn't it? I mean, I was just having a couple of conversations with some people that have been, that one of my clients is in Spain at the moment and been locked down. And I said, well, what's a gratitude moment right now that you can find? And he says, well, the gift of time. You could never have imagined how much time he's spending with his family right now. And I think all of us, it's almost like the whole world is slowed down in a way. It's almost like that the pause button has been pressed on the whole world. I mean, planes have stopped flying. Everything is just stopped. I mean, it's crazy. But I think the gift in this that you look at is that gift of time. So how are you best utilizing your gift of time at the moment in your world, Dave?
Thank you. I mean, as you were talking about, I was thinking about those points in time in history when everybody stopped, such as when President Kennedy here in the United States was shot, or when they landed on the moon, when everybody came together in one moment, and this is when, even when it happened to me, what happens to me so much, and I'll answer your question this way, is when I'm walking down the street or I'm at the airport and someone recognizes and say, I know exactly where I was when that plane crashed. And I mean, it's amazing when you get people who remember that moment in time, moment in time. So I think right now for me, it's all about, I get the opportunity to spend time with my family. We've eaten dinner every night together, which we haven't done in years. For last week, we've eaten every meal together. Now, sometimes that gets a little crazy, and sometimes maybe I like sort of eating in my office once in a while, but it really has helped me refocus. I think everybody's sort of thinking back, what? We can just slow down a little bit. Maybe this is the pause button our creator said, we need a pause button right now. Yeah. Maybe this is the pause button globally he can affect to make this happen. But I think it's just, I think everybody, if they focus on what's once again, not about them, what they can do for their family and just being time together, all of a sudden things slow down and maybe your blood pressure won't go up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love that the advice that you're giving us at the moment to be able to stay vigilant. Don't be casual, or else you will become a casualty. To give outside of yourself, and those are things that are so easy to do. So that is so precious to us. Now, I'm just going to throw this open to the guys on the call. Anybody that's got a question, because we're going to wrap up really soon, and it's going to be your last chance, it's your last moment right now to be able to ask Dave a question. But yeah, Dave, I've got to say thank you very much for making the time. It's so gracious of you, and thank you so much for your gift.
We've actually got a question here from Jason Tabone. I'm going to
fantastic.
Jace, mate, I'm going to unmute your microphone here, buddy.
Hey, Shane.
Hey, Jace, how are you?
Really good, thanks. I really enjoyed listening to you this morning, Dave, and you've put some amazing stuff out there. It's an amazing community that just continues to give, and I'm glad to be a part of. But if I can ask you for just one thing, and this question sort of popped in my head almost at the start, of when you started speaking there, but perhaps you can give us some advice on where to actually focus and actually start. Where can we start?
Where you could start to really start growing, or starting just getting your head together? Starting what?
With your head, getting your mindset, that direction of where to go. Like, I mean, I guess some sort of pinpoint starting point. It's this or that, and then we can go on that journey, but somewhere that's fairly focused at that pinnacle that we can push ourselves towards. Where can we actually start, please, Dave?
Good question. I'll just share. Once again, I love sharing stories because I think stories tell how you do things. So back in 1999, on the Big Island of Hawaii, I had the honor and privilege of escorting a gentleman by the name of General Norman Schwarzkopf, a gentleman he led the war in Iraq, the first war. And I had the opportunity to be with him. I was responsible for him. Now, I don't know if anybody here's ever been around a 4-star general, but it is quite intimidating. I never had been. And this guy was the guy. He was the man, right? So I was with him, and I said, General, can I ask you a question? He looked at me and said, "Oh, you really want to know? You just ask it." And I looked at him like whoa. I mean, it's like I overstepped my bounds. He goes, "Go ahead and ask it. How did you win the war in Iraq so quickly?" And he gave me this pat answer. And that's when I realized that all these guys have pat answers. I have them now. I can roll it off, and that just comes, right? Then I asked him, so he said, "May I ask you another question?" He looked, he said, "No one ever asked a general a second question." And he looked, he said, "But go ahead." I said, "How did you really win it?" And he looked at me and said, "No one's ever asked me that question. I'm going to tell you how I won the war." And he shared with me his strategy how he won the war. He said, every day people would come to me in the theater. Women couldn't drive tanks. Women had to cover their faces. They had to pray 5 times a day. And I kept reminding the troops, how does this contribute to kicking Saddam out of Kuwait? He said, all I did all day long is instill the people, the mission, kicking Saddam out of Kuwait. That's why he didn't go to Baghdad. That's why he didn't clean it up then, because it wasn't the mission. So to answer your question there, Jason, it all starts with understanding what your mission and purpose is. And that's why I always tell when people I mentor and coach. So I tell them, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to understand what is your mission in life, what's most important to you in your life, and what do you have to do to get it. And I always tell I get people focused on the mission. That's where it all starts. Because once I get people on the mission, and then the vision, everything else starts following down. So that's the way I would say through that story. And Schwarzkopf told me that. I mean, I remember it 20 some years later because it was so intense. And he had to do it every day to win a war. We're in a war now. So it starts with your mission, Jason.
Brilliant.
Thanks very much, Dave. Thank you. Incredible.
Brilliant. So, Ivor, mate, we're just about at the end of today's podcast. Dave, honestly, mate, there's so many nuggets. I've written 2 pages of notes in front of me. I really am appreciative and very grateful for you to be able to spend your time with us this morning. Mate, from me and my family over to yours, I truly hope everything works out great over there. I'm sure it will, with amazing insights and amazing mindset, and being able to really push through. You're genuinely on a mission to help millions and if not tens or hundreds of millions of people across the planet. And I'm very grateful to be able to speak to you this morning and hear your wise words.
Thank you, Shane, because that's exactly my mission now. My mission is, how can I teach these principles to 1 million people in 10 years? And as we learn, right, you just make the goal and you'll figure out how to do it. And I want to thank you and Ivor for giving me this opportunity, because we've impacted at least 10 to 15 minimal people today. We'll probably impact many more. So thank you for this opportunity to share and hopefully reconnect with people.
Absolutely. And Dave, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you, to ask you any questions or anything? Which is the best way for you?
Well, I'll tell you what. Thank you. I could give my website's DaveSandersonSpeaks.com, and that's where you can get a lot of my materials, but that's always under construction. The best way is through LinkedIn, because every day I put out new content every day about these 12 principles that Bill taught me, and now I'm talking about and teaching and writing the book about. So check me out on LinkedIn. It's David Sanderson on LinkedIn, and connect with me. You'll get free content every day, and if you want more information about some other things that I can do to help, just message me there. That's the best way to do it.
Absolutely. Well, Dave, again, we're so grateful that you could be on the call today, and I think everybody would agree that you've given us so much value and so much knowledge to be able to not only just to survive but to thrive as well. And I think the courage and the hope that we need to keep going. But more importantly, from us in Australia, and I know we got people across the world, and be safe. I know that you're not a stranger to Australia. We've been with Tony Robbins and everything else. And if you ever back over here again, please look us up, and we'll take you around. But to everybody else, be safe wherever you are. It's such a great opportunity that we're in at the moment. And remember, get creative, get resourceful, and give, because that's really where we're at the moment. And share this with the world. I mean, this little message at the moment, and these messages that we're going to have coming to you daily, share it with your friends, share it with your colleagues, because this is what's needed in the world right now. Not tomorrow, right now, because moments do matter. Is that correct, Dave?
Moments matter. I'm blessed to be able to be with you. Thank you so much, guys. And you be safe down under. I look forward to being back in Australia, hopefully in the next year, as soon as all this stuff clears up, and we'll make it rock and rain down in Australia.